Welcome to today's podcast. Today happens to be the 71st birthday of incredible jazz bassist Miroslav Vitous. I was highly influenced by Miroslav when I was younger. I actually never saw him play until many, 30 years later when I got to know the guy in Boston. But I was back in Eugene, Oregon and Seattle. I just moved to Seattle, and that'd been about 1974 going into 75. And Miroslav, oh my goodness, he's just an incredible musician. I thought I should talk a little bit about him today and, keep his name alive. He's a great player. I, like everybody else in those days, I was highly influenced and fell in love with the group Weather Report when they first came out. And the album that got me was, I believe, their second album. It's called Mysterious Traveler. Can't remember the name of their first one. Might have just been Weather Report. But anyway, on the second CD that came out, album in those days, Miroslav played bass, mostly double bass. He was only on 2 or 3 tunes. And Alfonso Johnson played electric bass. On the first Weather Report album, Miroslav, I believe, played all of it. And I've watched numbers of videos. There used to be some bootleg videos. I'm not sure if they're even out today, of Miroslav up there playing, mostly with his double bass, some electric, but double bass, and he's playing with a phase shifter and a fuzz tone. He's playing arco, and matter of fact, there's some footage of him playing with Miles and doing that same stuff. That's just a freaking knockout. In those days, I had just started playing double bass, and of course, I liked the traditional guys. I, immediately got into Ron Carter and Ray and those guys. But man, Miroslav just had such a free, still does, has such a free spirit in his playing. Absolute master on the instrument, just virtuoso, and just a real, like I say, sort of a free spirit. He just, could move between melodic solo or even melody kind of playing to solo stuff to cool, solid bass lines to very intricate and involved sort of counter lines going on. And like I said, it was a major influence on me. I, in those days, was playing with a bunch of guys, and we were all trying to play like that early Weather Report stuff. We kind of were into jazz, but we were also into some of this newer stuff. And man, I spent many a gig and, in sessions pretending I was Miroslav. I actually didn't learn one single line of his until many years later, but just the sound, the feel, and like I said, the overall sort of concept of what he did in a group, that really impacted how I thought about my playing in there. I remember when I went to Texas, that would have been 1978, that I played a solo concert. I remember it very well now. There was the Ludwig Drum Symposium. And I was fortunate enough that I'd been in the 1 o'clock band, and I got to play for a whole week with Roy Haynes, and as well as a bunch of other incredible musicians. But I was actually allowed to do a little solo. I went out and did about a 5 or 6 minute solo for this big crowd of people at this percussion symposium, and I played my double bass. I started out with my phase shifter and the bow. And I can just remember channeling Miroslav and feeling like that. Years ago, I had a cassette tape of it, and I really liked it. I thought it was quite good. I wish I still had that to hear it. But it was total Miroslav. It's total Miroslav influence. The CD that came out, again, album those days, called Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, Chick Corea, with Miroslav and Roy Haynes, that was perhaps, no, not perhaps, during that time, that was one of the biggest influential albums on me. Actually, it was on the entire jazz community. I've often told people that changed the direction of jazz trio playing. What that group was doing was just unbelievable. Very free-like, very fluid, but yet at the same time, just rock solid. And that one tune called Matrix, which is just a blues, Miroslav plays a beautiful solo on it, and you'd swear he's out of time. You would swear he's just playing sounds and shapes. But if you listen to it a few hundred times, and I'm not joking, and sort of start counting through it, you can see that you can feel it and hear it, that he's just playing the blues for him. He's just so able to take it beyond sort of a normal boom, chick, and move in and out of the phrasing and in and out of the tonalities. Just a powerful record. He always, in those days, used to play a beautiful Czech bass. I think he still does. I saw a picture not long ago where he has it. I've seen pictures of him playing a bunch of funky, sort of weird instruments, but I think he still has that Czech bass too. But in those days, he played that all the time, and it was very woody and very open sounding. Just real open and it just spoke. It sang, even though he played in the lower register. Even though it sang as in the lower register as well as the upper register, is what I was trying to say. And man, goodness, I watched or listened to Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, that whole album. I mean, as much as I've ever listened to any album. For probably a good 4 or 5 years, I just lived with that sucker, and I got into that sort of phraseology that Miroslav was playing, and those lines he plays. Like I said, he moved in and out of bass line to melody to counter line, but in his bass lines, I started to get a concept and hear how he shaped his lines, and it wasn't root third, fifth, seven. No, he played a lot of those notes, but he played a lot of others. But he had a way of creating a counter line, very Mingus-like, but much more contemporary, which which served to really be so almost like an equal voice, not even an equal voice, but a very supportive voice, but a very, very moving voice, which inspired the soloist to kind of move in those directions too. Now, of course, he plays just greats all the time. There's some just grooving, funky stuff on that Now He Sings, Now He Sobs record. Well, fast forward to about 1982. Yeah, it was 1982-ish. I moved to Boston. I moved there to study classical music with Ed Barker on the double bass. And a year or two later, Miroslav came to town. Now, Miroslav originally, many years before, came to school at Berkeley College as a scholarship student and apparently wowed everyone. But I did not know that at the time. Until I moved to Boston, I heard stories about Miroslav. Well, he came back into town, and he actually became the chairman of the jazz department of New England Conservatory. And he came there a year or two after I graduated from there. I graduated from the conservatory playing classical music. I'm guessing he must have come in maybe 87-ish, something like that. I'm not sure, 86, 87, someplace around there, maybe 85. Anyway, it was in that era, and I would go hear him play. He'd play around town. I remember one gig he played with Pat Metheny and Roy Haynes and Miroslav, and oh my God, it was so cool in those days too. The club, we'd go to a small club, but there wasn't more than 80 to 100 people, and I could just sit right beside him. Well, I watched him play one night, and I went up and I introduced myself and hi, and he was very kind, very cool, and I loved his bass. And I said something. He said, "Here, sure, try it." So I plucked a few notes on it. And my God, it was incredible. And I invited him to a concert, which was about 2 weeks after that. I said, "Man, I'm doing this concert with really good musicians, and we're playing some stuff that I think you would like, sort of open-like, concept-like." And he said, "Sure, man." And I thought, yeah, right, he'll never come. He's just being nice. Well, lo and behold, he showed up at that concert. And afterwards, he came up, and I said, "Man, check my bass out." In those days, I had a little over a 200-year-old German bass that was similar to his Czech, but not totally. I mean, not at all in tone, but it was similar in the sense that it just was real open, growled, and spoke real well. And he played it. He fell in love with it. He's like, "Oh, my God, love this instrument." He's just playing all over my bass, thereafter I played my little concert, which was good, but Miroslav played about 100 times better, screwing around afterwards. And everybody was just like, "Oh, my God, that's Miroslav playing Jim's bass." It was really cool. So I didn't see him for probably 6 months. I didn't see us playing around, and I'm playing a New Year's Eve gig over in Harvard Square. Can't remember who the players were. I think Joe was playing drums, Joe Hunt. Can't remember the other guys. But lo and behold, in the middle of the first set, Miroslav walked in. And I just looked up and saw him, and he kind of smiled at us. I thought, "Oh, my God, Miroslav, what's he doing here?" Well, he had a beautiful young girlfriend on each elbow. He had two of them. And he sat down and began to drink and enjoy the music. So we finished the first set, and I went over and talked to him, and I said, "Would you like to sit in and play a tune, with the band?" Because I knew he liked my bass. I said, "You could try out my bass for real." He said, "Oh, yeah, please." So he sat in and played a tune. He played the entire set. What a freaking treat for me to get to sit, 60 feet away from the guy, maybe probably even less, probably 40 feet. Yeah, I'd say about 40 feet away from the guy, and watch him play my bass for about 40 minutes straight. And, literally, if you don't know who Miroslav is, he's in my opinion, he's in the top, 6, 8, 10 bass players who ever lived. Just unbelievable control of the instrument, all over the register, low, high. He could do all these unbelievable cool things with harmonics up there. He's playing solos in harmonics with his bow. And, oh, man, unbelievable. But here he was playing on this gig, and I was sitting at the table with, Jolligering his two girlfriends, and everybody's happy and have fun. And afterwards, he's like, "Man, I'm sorry, but I just couldn't stop playing your bass." Well, it was so cool. I loved it. It was an experience I'll never forget. I never really became close personal friends with Miroslav. He was traveling in a little faster circles than I wanted to be involved in, with mainly a lot of medication and stuff, and that wasn't my bag. But but we had respect for each other, and he liked my bass, and I liked his playing. Very nice guy. He sort of faded off the scene, at least here in the U.S. Not long after that. He was here in Boston for probably about 3, maybe 4 years, and then he left New England. He was not cut out to be an academician, an administrator kind of guy. And I would see every once in a while a couple things he would do with certain players, sort of traditional. And then every so once in a while you'd see something where he's doing this thing with an orchestra, and he's written all this music and doing all these sort of funny tonalities and these concepts and stuff. And every time you'd hear it play, it was like, oh my God, what a beautiful player. One of the things that's just, I think you can go find it on YouTube or something, is find Miroslav playing Freedom Jazz Dance. I can barely remember it. I'm trying to think if it was a solo bass or if he's playing with a couple other players. But oh my goodness, is it happening? That's just one of the little gems I remember. And then he popped up, I think, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I saw him play, and there was pictures and videos of him playing this funny little bass, sort of a contemporary, smallish double bass, and he was really playing melodic, is what he was. He really wasn't playing bass. He was just, woo! He has such huge hands. He has such a reach on the instrument. He's learned to, like I said, to do these things with harmonics, not just in the upper register, but in the bottom. And he can just, make anything from beautiful sounds to screaming sounds to funky sounds. It's the guy's just a virtuoso beyond pale, really. I've always admired him, and the fact that it's just his birthday today, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about him and tell you my experience with Miroslav. I will forever be have great feelings and just have a warmth, in my heart thinking about hearing his playing and how much it influenced me, and I wanted to be like that. And it really, like I said, it really did. His whole concept affected how, it was a big impact on how I thought about playing in a trio. For many years, I got away from that, and I played just real standard, real traditional jazz, real straight ahead, sort of boom, chick kind of stuff. And only really in the last year or two have I played a few different sort of free-ish things. I think it was because I taught for 30 years and I was always playing the stuff for my students, and I was trying to keep it simple so they could figure it out. But I've done a couple of things. Not really. I don't have the chops as much, obviously, that I used to, because I don't play double bass very much anymore. But man, being able to take it out a little bit, it just reminds me of that Miroslav feel. I've never heard another player, see if I can describe it right here, who could play as controlled out. And if you don't know what that means, sorry, you just need to go watch a bunch of Miroslav. But you can hear it and go, oh my God, what is he doing? What's that song? What are those chords? What's that groove? What's that tempo? What are those scales he's playing? And it just sounds freaking beautiful. Controlled, out of controlness, if you will. Not chaos at all, but just, real controlled, real, I don't know if it's called sophisticated, but refined. There we go. Very refined, sort of a controlled outness that he could do. And it's just right on the edge of just crazy. Just absolutely loved his playing. So, happy birthday, Miroslav. Fired up.